To this day, I'm still haunted by Guerrilla Games announcing the PS5 next-gen update for Horizon Zero Dawn the day after I forked out 40 quid for the PC version instead.
The patch for 60 FPS support for Horizon Zero Dawn on PlayStation 5 is live right now.
No! God!
Guerrilla Games announced that they were shadow dropping a patch for Horizon Zero Dawn.
No! God, please, no!
Which unlocks the game's frame rate up to 60 FPS on PlayStation 5.
No! No! No!
40 bloody quid, it still hurts. And you know what? What makes it even worse is playing Zero Dawn on my PS5 with a locked 60 FPS at a checkerboard 4K. I was pretty hard pushed to really notice any significant differences compared to my PC version of Zero Dawn. The saving grace though was the Frozen Wilds DLC was included, but still, 40 quid. There are some obvious anti-aliasing distinctions with areas not looking quite as sharp on PS5 and the subtle difference between 80 and 60 FPS, but it's pretty minimal. Now, at the same time as the Zero Dawn upgrade was announced, Guerrilla Games announced the release date for Horizon Forbidden West as well, and this announcement seemingly produced a massive loss for PS4 owners who were planning to eventually upgrade to the PS5 version. Sony were planning to charge players for the upgrade unless you bought the super duper luxurious deluxe version or whatever it's called, which would include the free upgrade, and this would only set you back 80 quid. Oh, how kind of them. Thankfully they banged a U-turn on that decision, but even so, I still remember prior to this U-turn, we saw the PS5 fanboys unbelievably defending this original decision to charge for an upgrade when their main competitor has the exact opposite approach. I was always told to believe the customer is always right.
And in fact, the customer is usually a moron and an asshole.
The first thing that springs to mind whenever I think of Horizon Zero Dawn is the narrative. We play as Aloy, a character that was welcomed into the world in such a non-copyright infringing and beautifully unique way. Aloy was cast out from the Nora tribe at birth, and during the early parts of the game, playing as the child Aloy really evoked the lonesome emotions of exclusion and being made to feel different. Aloy develops and hones her skills thanks to the help of her carer Rost, and the biggest question Aloy wants answering is, who was Aloy's mother? Where is she now, and why did she abandon poor Aloy? She's an unknown and unwanted individual that's shunned by the Nora tribe, and even daring to enter a tribe village, she's often met with rudeness and hostility.
What's this motherless fuck's name?
Set in the 31st century USA, humongous robots shaped like very familiar creatures have ravished the world to become the dominant species, knocking mankind down the pecking order. Humanity's become sparse and gathered into tribes, living mostly in peace with the machines, staying behind the walls for the most part, hunting them for parts when necessary. After years have passed though, the new world order being established, these machines that were once mostly peaceful have now succumbed to the occurrence of something similar to a virus known as the derangement, gaining new behavioural traits and becoming much more hostile towards humans. How and why this has happened, as well as the history behind these machines to begin with, is so intriguing, and the nature in which the story is told is packed with raw human emotion alongside these wildly imaginative creations. It's such a unique take on an apocalyptic setting, with the mundanity of a nuclear war or some zombie virus starting to wear a little thin now. It's not just the visual creativity that I fell in love with either. These are some of the most no-nonsense, confrontational names that any robots have ever been called. The Rockbreaker, the Thunderjaw, the Deathbringer, the Fireclaw, the Sawtooth, and the Arseblaster 9000. Well, actually, no, that last one was my own suggestion to Guerrilla Games, and they very rudely ignored me when I proposed the idea to them, and this has only further enhanced my growing hostility towards them. Zero Dawn was released in 2017, a time when the market was rife with generically dull and uninspired open worlds that are packed with map icons acting as meaningless filler to add illusion of weight to the world. The attention to detail is phenomenal in Zero Dawn, even today, where the player's expectation of an open world is so much higher. The graphical details, the variety of enemy locations, the NPCs that are offering side quests, the flora, the wildlife, the collectibles, it's all top top-tier open-world design. Guerrilla Games still threw in a Ubisoft favourite of giving us the option to climb some form of apparatus to get some epic view of the world around us though, but I actually enjoy this most of the time, and albeit a Ubisoft formula in theory, in practice it certainly had its own identity. Climbing these viewpoints added more excitement with them being on the move, as well as them being Brachiosaurus type machines known as long necks, and Aloy has to find a high enough spot to leap onto these massive lumbering machines before climbing to its head to override its brain for knowledge. It's these finer details that offer such a refreshing take on familiar systems. This is what I've always enjoyed about the Horizon franchise. Even the collectibles offer an intriguing concept behind them that inspired me enough to keep looking. Ancient vessels, which are basically just coffee mugs, and these mysterious metal flowers, as well as glimpses into the old ways that can be digitally viewed through the various vantage points. I love to hear Aloy's innocent confusion as she gazes over what would be foreign images to her, but very familiar ones to the player. Hunting for machine parts as well as the animals that have survived the New World Order is one of the biggest aspects of the game, with most resources coming from the machines and animals that are out in the wild, as well as the odd crate or chest here and there. These animal skins and machine parts will help Aloy buy specific items from merchants, as well as crafting traps and even quick crafting ammo on the fly within the weapon wheel menu. Scavenging for plants is the other resource to find, and these can be used for health potions as well as elemental damage resistance potions, and all of these resources are nicely tied together, encouraging the player to stay focused on your surroundings, not only with the intent to avoid danger, but as a means to keep fully stocked up on the items that Aloy needs to continue venturing on with a means to defend herself. Although this isn't revolutionary, it's an addictive process, but it's a process that isn't immersive in the slightest. To give you an example, you'll need to craft a fast travel pack for every time you want to skip a journey. You can craft more than one at any one time, but these travel packs require some sticks, some fatty meat and some bony meat, which makes absolutely no true to life sense whatsoever, but it kept my eyes and ears on the prowl for the resources to keep the game flowing. This flow is continued by Aloy picking up every item with a quick swipe of her hand, and she'll even be picking up items while on horseback. That flow of the game would be killed if the game had a more realistic hands-on feeling, similar to Red Dead's animated camp crafting or the long dark slow-paced cooking for example. I usually prefer these more immersive methods of crafting and looting systems, but in Horizon it all kept within the menus, keeping it fast-paced and getting us out into the action that much quicker, and these systems worked really well in Horizon Zero Dawn. I felt like the combat was a mixed bag, with the best feelings coming from the ranged combat and the hunt that precedes the first attack. Entering the long grass using Aloy's third eye toy known as a focus gives us the ability to scope out areas and pinpoint each machine's weak point. Studying these machines for future fights against them is so compelling to plan your attack, and there's so many machines to learn. Solving the simplistic yet gratifying puzzle behind how to quickly dispatch each of them is diversified between the enemy types as well. You could lay down some traps and tripwires, causing the necessary elemental damage against that enemy's elemental weakness. You could pop in and out of cover, taking well-placed long-range shots at their weak spots. You could decide to go in all guns blazing and bombard them with varying elemental grenades from your slingshot, or you could just use your rope caster to pull your prey down to Aloy's level with ropes, leaving the machine confused and humiliated. The options of approach are fantastic and all must be used at some point or another. It's the melee combat in the game that really needs improving, with Aloy's spear being her only weapon to use in close quarters. It feels rigid with an overly generous lock-on, similar to the Batman series really, where Aloy will glide an illogical distance across the ground to plant her spear through an enemy. The dodging mechanic too, it just feels a little off. It works okay at times, but other times it feels a little harsh, with more of an emphasis being placed on which way to dodge rather than the timing of your dodge. But having said that, tying all of her moveset together successfully and seeing Aloy bob, weave, dip and twerk her way out of danger with those luxurious ginger locks flowing behind her before putting an end to this well-crafted robotic adversary is such a sight for sore eyes. One quick final point on the gameplay side of things was the climbing and generally traversing around the environment. Games like Ghost of Tsushima and Tomb Raider have similarly obvious walls to scale with brightly coloured pegs and edges, making it clear to the player that this can be climbed. But this isn't an issue because it's the same in Horizon Zero Dawn. The issue though was the lack of animations and interactivity Aloy has with the most simplistic of rocks. If there's no yellow pegs or ledges for Aloy to climb, then she proceeds to shit herself when stepping over a pebble.
Look out below!
I'm not asking for an Assassin's Creed level of traversing or anything like that, just the odd ledge here and there should be scalable. So this was Guerrilla Games' first real attempt to implement RPG elements into a game, and it's pretty obvious too, with the skill tree feeling a little tacked on and unbalanced. Some of the skills feel pretty pointless, while some of them feel essential to the game. Sticking with the RPG side of things as well, I think most gamers are used to being given dialogue choices, and we're given some in Horizon Zero Dawn, but sadly none of these choices actually carry any weight behind them. They merely serve as an alternative and immediate reaction from the character Aloy's having a conversation with, and even then they're few and far between. It's nice to be given choices, but if they amount to absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things, I'd rather we didn't have choices to begin with. Every conversation with an NPC feels a little wooden now too, and that's especially considering the fact that Guerrilla Games added so much more animation to each NPC interaction in Forbidden West. PC players will be pleased to know that those early day glitches and hideous visuals have all been rectified. The frame rate is stable, and even though there's still the odd texture pop in, the game looks sublime. The game's default brightness though, it's way too bright, which is nitpicking to be honest, but what you've watched so far is actually set to the lowest in-game brightness setting, and this was tested on a 4K OLED TV as well as a 4K LG GP950 monitor. It's a minor issue and the game still looks incredible regardless though. There's nothing exactly nuanced about the gameplay in Horizon Zero Dawn, but even so, the mechanics feel well polished and refined, but it's the story that stands this game up there with some of the greatest open world games to date, as a game that's still well worth replaying, and from a narrative standpoint it's essential to play if you're planning on playing Horizon Forbidden West at some point. I'd love to know what you guys make of Zero Dawn. How do you think it holds up today? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.